Howdy, Immortalium here. Today I'm reviewing the first collection of Kenichi, the Mightiest Disciple. Now, Kenichi, the Mightiest Disciple is a pretty popular series, at least in Japan. The manga, which I believe is published in Weekly Shonen Sunday, which is one of the big shonen magazines in Japan, it's reached about its 50s in terms of volume, so it's definitely long running. Has yet to be translated over here though, but they've translated the anime. Funimation released it, and I bought it. Not necessarily because I was interested in how it sounded. There's a lot of deceptive anime that sounds bad, but can potentially be awesome. And I bought this because I saw that it was generally considered one of the better shonens. Lots of positive reviews, 4 stars, etc, etc. So I bought it. Particularly, it also helped that it was at a budget price. You got 26 episodes for £20, I think it was on Amazon when I bought it. So, I thought, can't go wrong. So what did I think of it? The answer is it was okay. It's not particularly good. It's not particularly bad. But it's fairly average. So let me just get into the story of it for one. So the story is that we're introduced to a guy called Kenichi, which is that boy there. And he encounters a girl called Miu, which is the blonde one behind him. And he's known as Weak Knees Kenichi in school. He joins the karate club, he's bullied, so he must learn martial arts in order to become stronger. The martial arts club, dojo that Miu lives in. And they do stuff fairly, brutally, in really intense training. And basically, he encounters an organization and he must defeat them. So, fairly standard sounding story. Now, we know that, particularly when it comes to shonen stories, it's not so much the story itself as the journey, So, as long as the individual elements that make up a shonen series is good, then it doesn't matter. But with this series, there's not too many positives to speak of. There are positives, I will say, but there's not too many. First of all, let's discuss the characters. The way that the mangaka decided to develop these characters is really to not develop them at all, besides, Kenichi's fighting skills. The best way to describe the characters themselves is that he's taken one aspect of them and put it up to 11. So, you have Kenichi, who is the most whiny little brat. I mean, he's kind of like Shinji from Evangelion, but he's just, completely unlikable. You have Miu, who's the big boobed blonde one, who's actually really awesome at fighting. And then you have the trainers, the senseis, who, they're odd, is the best way to describe them. Like, for example, let me just give you the example of Apachai, who's this Thailand guy. What's his martial arts form again? It involves, the elbows and knees. And he's not bright, but he's like the soft giant kind of character. So there's a lot of cliches. And basically, the mangaka seem to have decided that the more hyper and, extreme the characters are, the better. And there's no character development to speak of, except that some enemies become friends, but that's not really character development so much. The two most important parts of any fighting show is the comedy and the fighting. Now, the fighting itself is not so bad. Besides some possible implications that there might be some kind of, chi-like, powers, as far as I can tell, this is, the combat in this show is fairly realistic. Now, realistic might be taken to an, extreme sense in that some characters are jumping up, on walls and all that. But, the martial arts styles they use are real. So, for example, it was the second episode, I believe, Miu taught Kenichi a technique which I could myself replicate. Basically, you had to put your right foot out forward, your left foot half a step back, You put all your weight on your right foot, and then using your right foot, you could actually swing yourself around fast. So your opponent punches forward, you swing to the side of them and are able to strike back. And I liked that touch, that it was realistic. In comparison to like Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, Fairy Tail, whatever. Where like the action is completely, like power based and everything. So I like that aspect. I thought that was a very positive aspect to it, as well as the animation itself. The animation for the fights, while not spectacular, are very nice. There's a great sense of motion, of movement, of the impact of the punches. The animation for this series overall is actually pretty good. Talking about the comedy now, the comedy is actually very poorly done, in my opinion, because the majority of the comedy in this series comes from, oh hey, let's look at Kenichi doing extreme training, and look at the agony he's in, and let's listen to him wail. And I'm not that keen on that comedy, particularly when it's, done over and over again. That's why I actually hated the first episode and a half of this. I absolutely despised them, and it wasn't until the second half of the second episode where Kenichi finally fought his first opponent that actually started to see the positive aspects to the series. So, let me give you an example of a training regimen. So Kenichi has to drag his sensei along the ground on a tire with, Kenichi tethered up to it, and his master's whipping him. And of course we're supposed to laugh and go, ha ha ha, that's funny. It's not. Now, that's not to say there's no good comedic aspects to this. I mean, occasionally it managed to get a chuckle out, but overall not particularly. The comedy is very poorly done in this. So, and another aspect that I do have an issue with is the character designs themselves. Now, I'm not sure how clear you can see from the character designs on the box, but the character designs themselves are, okay, there's two ways. Either they're, cliche but appealing, or they're trying to be original and they become unappealing. For example, there's a friend of Kenichi called Nijima, and he's that annoying friend type, that guy that, Kenichi just doesn't want to hang out with. So I guess the way they represented that was the fact that he has these kind of elf ears, or demon ears, or whatever you want to call, the kind of long, slithery tongue, and of course no one pays any attention to that. But he's unappealing to look at. Now, I know that, he's not meant to be appealing to look at, but he's just not well drawn. And that's that. And it's the same case with Miyu here, the girl, the love interest in this series. I don't usually like to judge girls in anime based on looks, but in this case, that is the majority of her role, besides, the saving Kenichi every so often and the training him in certain aspects of training, mainly eye candy. And the anime, I'm sure it was the mangaka himself, not the animators, because the characters move fairly well. The Miyu's face is quite unappealing, mainly due to her forehead. It just looks completely, not cute at all. So I think overall the animation itself very nice. The character designs not that good, either cliche or unappealing. The combat itself is definitely the best aspect to this show. Which is a shame then why, particularly in the middle of this 26 episode box set, that there is a long string of comedic episodes where we get to see Kenichi, in all these awkward situations without any actual fighting. So, I'm gonna say, I'm probably not gonna get the next box set of this, even at its budget price. If this sounds appealing to you, if you don't mind your cliches, and if you actually like that type of humor, then go right ahead, it's well priced. And I can understand why some people would like it, but for me, it's not my kind of show. It's just it's not something that, you know, I want to continue with. And if that's the case, why bother buying the next box set? So, whatever. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye-bye.